Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Delhi NCR chapter of ICF and Community Service Portfolio, I welcome you all to this candid conversation, Purpose and Practice Coaching Not-for-Profit Leaders. Over the last few months, something powerful has been happening quietly. Leaders from the not-for-profit sector have been partnering with coaches under the ICF Foundation's Ignite initiative, working together through a 6-month pro bono coaching journey. Every guest here today is both a leader and a coachee, and that duality is at the heart of this conversation. Our conversation today is aptly titled Purpose and Practice Coaching Not-for-Profit Leaders. To help us anchor this dialogue, I'm delighted to invite on stage Mr. Kenneth Wheeler, Director of Community Service, ICF Delhi NCR, who has been closely involved in shaping and stewarding these coaching journeys.
Thank you, Indu.
Welcome, Kenneth. Our first panelist for the day is Ms. Neha Sharma from Deepalaya. Ms. Neha Sharma is the Director of Programs and Communications at Deepalaya, a respected not-for-profit enabling self-reliance since 1979. With a postgraduate background in social work, Neha brings deep hands-on experience across education, public health, disability, livelihoods, women empowerment, WASH, and institutional care. She has worked with organizations such as State Bank of India, Global Fund, Modi Care Foundation, and CanKids, and continues to be deeply committed to the social justice and community empowerment. A lifelong learner and philomath, Neha brings both heart and rigor to the work she does. Welcome, Neha, to the event. I would now like to invite Mr. Sandeep Talwar, CEO, Impact Group Foundation. Sandeep is a seasoned leader with over 2 decades of experience across the corporate and social sectors. Having led senior roles in the organizations such as Akshay Patra Foundation, Airtel, Bharti, Motorola, and Vodafone, Sandeep brings a strong blend of strategic thinking and execution excellence. With a dual postgraduate background from Duke University and IIM Ahmedabad, he is deeply passionate about building high-performing teams and driving sustainable social impact. I welcome you, Sandeep, to today's conversation.
Thank you. Good morning, Indu.
Good morning, Sandeep. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Ajit Sivaram from U&I. Mr. Ajit Sivaram is a co-founder of U&I, a volunteer-driven movement with over 75,000 plus volunteers across 40 Indian cities. And he is also co-founder of Change Plus, a leadership development firm. As an alumnus of St. Stephen's College and Hillsong Leadership College, Ajit has led movements in education and leadership development for over 2 decades. He is also known for his influencing without authority. He is a disc trainer, a leadership educator, and a powerful voice in the social impact ecosystem. Welcome, Ajit, to today's conversation.
Thank you, Indu, and very, very grateful to be here. Looking forward to that chat.
Suneha, Sandeep, and Ajit, thank you for being here and for the work you do every day on the ground. I now request Kenneth to take forward this conversation.
Thank you, Indu, so much for setting the context, bringing us on board, and for your enthusiastic introductions. And gratitude once again to Ajit, Sandeep, and Neha for accepting and welcoming us with open arms as a part of the Delhi NCR chapter of ICF and partnering with us on this 6 months coaching program. And as we start, I would like to bring my perspective, which for us as a chapter was to say that we will focus our energy and take coaching towards contributing to leadership development and capacity building for all the leaders in the not-for-profit sectors. This idea came about from a thought where we felt that the not-for-profit leaders today, they're not struggling because of the lack of intent or intelligence or resources. The struggle perhaps is because the leaders in the not-for-profit sectors are carrying too much purpose at times, too few pauses, and very little space to think, reflect, and evoke awareness. So this conversation is about what changes when leaders finally get that space to pause, think, reflect, and evoke awareness for themselves. And thank you to each one of you for being very excited to come on board as a coachee, which is not easy to do because you're putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. So to begin, let me take us back to the starting point. And we'll look at this as a round robin. And maybe Neha, we start with you, followed by Ajit, and then we'll go to Sandeep. As we address this question, when coaching was first offered to you as a program, what was your first honest reaction? Neha, if we could start with you, please.
Thank you, Kenneth, for that question. And I think you put a lot of stress on the honest reaction. So I'll be honest, much honest with you. So like everybody, because there's a loneliness in leadership when you go up the ladder and when you become the senior management from the ground level, you miss out on a lot of circle of people that you were working with. Your circle when you're on field, it's always very large, and you're interacting without being judged, without being judgmental about, and there are less expectations of you. And as you go into the leadership, up the ladder, you miss out on those people and to whom to interact to and people to listen to you in an unbiased view. So my first view was I was super excited because I knew that there is somebody who's going to be listening to me and giving me solutions, and we'll be discussing things without any of those expectations and judgments. But a reality check also happened when the calendar in front was open and we saw the deadlines and the launches and the reports and documentations. So it was a mixed feeling. I mean, it was both that we were excited and we were also trying to figure out how to stream that down so that nothing is affected severely because of that. And soon we realized that it's not a luxury to be able to get coached by someone. It's actually a necessity, and we realized that in the first meeting itself.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Yes, over to you, Ajit.
Mine isn't as profound as Neha's. I think Indu emailed us first, right? So my first reaction is this must be a scam, right? Because they're definitely not giving free coaching. I know how much coaching costs. So my first thought was, this is one of those, how they invite you to come speak in an event, then niche uske baad they'll say to speak you have to pay 25,000. I thought this was one of those. Somewhere there'll be some asterisks, and so that was my first honest reaction when I read Indu's email. My second reaction was, okay, if it's free, it's 100% going to be a coach who is new in their journey, or they need some free hours of they need to practice on bakras, and what better bakras to practice on than the social space. So I thought that was my second reaction. This is definitely going to be newbie coaches. They would have just first level of coaching, they need some hours. And I think the first time then we met and I clarified all these, I honestly, and I still believe it's too good to be true. Like the value that you're offering through this program is incredible. And I think we've never, in the last 15 years of running, you and I have had this opportunity, Usually it's 1 or 2 people here and there will come and say, hey, I'll offer a few hours or do a workshop. But like the intensive hours of 10 people from our organization going through, it's hundreds of hours of investment into the team, and that we hugely value. So yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting indeed. Sandeep.
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. And I agree with Ajit very much. When my first honest reaction, trust me, was a mix of curiosity and caution, cautious optimism there. The reality of life is that as a non-for-profit, not me, my non-for-profit, and most of us are really too much intrinsically involved on ensuring, boss, this KPI to be delivered, that KPI to deliver, program has to probably figure out X number of hours to be put into ensuring our outcomes are there, because donor commitments are way too high for all of us, right? Coaching, oh my God, okay, X number of hours, I'll have to tell my team members to take it out and probably invest in something else. There may be some additional amount of homework they will have to do. Would they have enough time to do all this? Trust me, this is my first reaction. I've been thinking, can they really take coaching and invest into it? Well, that is the need of the hour. And I think why I'm saying the need of the hour is today, India has 76,700 registered non-for-profits. And Brisbane itself did say that 72% of the organizations today do not have enough and more people at the leadership level. And none of them are focused on capacity building and training. I think what you guys are doing is a brilliant beginning, right? And I think that's a need of the hour in this sector, and especially in India, right? We do not look at coaching. We do not look at training and skilling of people. We do not look at building the leadership pipeline. If you guys are doing it, it's a great beginning. While we started off with a bit of hesitation, but what has evolved is right now with my team is a lot of appreciation for ICF team. And I can see my team now started up contributing and sharpening the strategies. We started to build the resilience around it. And the stakeholder engagement has also changed. I have seen that in the last few weeks. So this is amazing. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you to each one of you for bringing in your honest reaction as to what landed for you when you first heard about coaching. And what I could hear from different corners of our conversation so far, it's one, not so much as the resistance to coaching itself. It's a blend of, is this true? The leaders are wondering, does this coaching fit into our busy schedule? And is this really going to understand my reality? Is it going to really work? So with all of that, and I hear recognition for the Delhi chapter coaches who are professional and have their heart in giving back to the society and working with the leaders of the not-for-profit, so that we firmly believe, like all the coaches who are involved in this, firmly believe that if we can positively impact the leaders of the not-for-profit, then we allow them to amplify that effect with their team, on themselves, on the organization, and also ultimately carry it to the end beneficiaries. So thank you for sharing all that. All right, so moving into our next segment, Sandeep, maybe a question to begin with you. And we would love to know, what is the personal cost of leading with purpose that no one has prepared you for? Because that's the leadership reality. Nobody really prepares you. So what has been your experience as the personal cost of leading with purpose?
It's a hard question, but then I'll again start off with why did I enter into this sector is I realized very early, I think I was the youngest CEO in the telecom sector, right? While I was locked in Kashmir and I had to survive by eating grass stuffed bread, वो पराठा होता है, उसके बीच में मेरे कुक ने उसको घास को बॉईल करके डाला था. So as being a CEO, if you probably have to have that, you realize, okay, what is hunger? You realize what is that you need to do for the society and not for yourself, right? So I think it's the constant weight of emotional responsibility as a leader we all have to carry. I think so. It's beyond strategy. It's beyond operations. One need to carry the unspoken burden of every beneficiary story, every donor expectation, and every team member's aspiration. So this is, I think that's a big one. Trust me, right? One has to do it, right? And on the other side, when you do all this, there's a huge amount of sacrifice on the personal time, family commitments, even your own health. Because unfortunately, in the non-for-profit sector, you do not have enough more leeway for having your EAs to probably look at. I used to at times laugh, that you have to come back from whatever travel and whatever you do, you come back and start again putting your travel bills together and making an MIS for submission to the because the audits are far more harsher in the non-for-profit than maybe on the for-profit, right? So every rupee has to match. If bills are not there, you may not get it, and so on and so forth, right? So because the entire expenses are audited by the donors here, right? So while in most of the sectors, including the non-for-profit, the three questions which arises: what will still deliver when pressure arises? Whose reality we are designing this for, right? What is it? Decisions will protect our dignity. I think all these three decisions and beyond that do stay more with non-for-profit than with for-profit business. While I'm on both the sides of the business, I've realized this is much more prominent to us. And coaching does pay a lot amount of. In fact, I respect the coaches over here because they have made a difference in my life, and I've learned that itself from. And I was reading recently a book on Steve Jobs, right? And he wrote very clearly about Bill Campbell. He said that, and who was known as the coach of Silicon Valley, right? That in his career, while very early he was brilliant and abrasive, very much like me, right? It was his coach who probably built him on understanding people, empathy, and listening, right? And we could see him, how the entire thing has changed. In the entire book, it is written that how his thought process changed to become more thoughtful, more reflective, and that's how the people became more loyal to him, and that's how he could execute what he was executing. Right? So for me, as I said, I think the constant weight of emotional responsibility is something which is comes in the sacrifice on the personal side, my family, my commitments. That comes in on your way when you have to hold this position on this side.
Yeah, very well said, and I'm sure all of the audience listening in can resonate with that, because it's what I pick up from what you said in terms of what happens when pressure kicks in, and picking up on that thread, Neha, moving to you, what leadership challenges are unique to the not-for-profit space? If you could shed some light out of your experience, like what Sandeep said, when the pressure kicks in, how do you handle that?
So I think Kenneth, and I was noting while Sandeep was also saying, I think some of the points that we also, and as individuals, as leaders, we resonate with. So as non-profit organization, we are a civil society organization, a community-based organization, a non-government organization. There are multiple, by what, and these are all, the specializations. We are not a government organization, but then when it comes to compliance, we have to make sure that everything is intact. Be it FCRA, TG, income tax, the policies. If you are working in a sector which is education based, you have to go by the education policy, the early childhood care and protection policy. Deepalia runs a children's home for the children who are destitute and neglected and in need of care and protection. So we have to go by the Juvenile Justice Act for that matter. What if we are doing, so all those compliances, and as Sandeep mentioned, the audit. So in a non-profit organization, as he rightly mentioned, we are also very particular about the audits, and many a times, we are working in the most remote area, and the audit would require us to submit all, due invoices and net documents. And you will not, in a remote rural village, you cannot be having a electronically generated invoice, but your donor and your auditor would need it. So those are the very grassroots struggles. Besides a very common challenge which every NGO and most of the NGOs face are fundraising constraints. Our budgets are restricted. Our funding is, limited, and they are time bound. So those are the challenges. So we have to make sure that whatever manpower and talent that we hire, our resources, they are there. They are highly passionate, despite that we are not offering them the market-wise prices. We have to still make sure that they are equally enthusiastic about the work and constantly, are passionate about the kind of role that they are playing in the organization, and they retain in the organization, and they continue to work with us. Keeping in mind that there is also a lot of emotional load that they carry always. So in NGO sector, like if I talk about Dipalia, or in my previous experience when I was working on public health, so we were working with victims of trauma, of abuse. There were so many, children who were in palliative care, and it is not easy, trust me. So when we are working, we are emotionally drained out. When I say we, I'm talking about all the family of the CSOs and CDOs and nonprofits. So it is not easy to match up and to keep up to those struggles, and hence coaching of course comes as like a fresh air in those, because you get a time for yourself to pause and think. Also, if I can recall, like in non-profits, there is, it's a very, very rich and diverse sector, and emerging very, like when we see a lot of non-profits, we have so much of richness in it because of the diverse people from diverse backgrounds that are coming. So you have people from the developmental sector, of course, which means they've done their degrees and grads and postgrads and PhD in social work. But there will also be people from the IT sector, the finance sector, the MBA and the marketing sector. So it is so much of diversity in the sector in itself, that you also have to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So if your advisory or board comprises of the people from those who are not from the developmental sector, let's say, and your stakeholders, which comprises of your corporates, your individual donors, who may also not be from the same sector, and keeping in mind that your primary stakeholder is your person who is in the community, so your representative. So you are trying to join the dots and bridge everything together for them, to make sure that the felt needs are recognized, identified, and that is what we are working. And because sometimes the corporate or any agency or any individual for that matter, they are very particular about that this is what we want to do. Like let's say that I want to do something on plantation, so my environment is my forte and I want to do into this thing. But your community need at that moment could be sanitation and not beautification. So, and you have to, as a leader, that becomes your prime responsibility and your role to make sure that that is heard. So I think those were the points. And one more thing, that when I was listening to Sandeep, it's that tag of, that the mission over market pressure, because we see so many, in this era of digital marketing and everything, it has to go by the face value. And we have to constantly make sure that the vision and the mission, that does not get nullified at any moment. We should not glamorize vulnerability. We have to be very particular about the work that we do, because when we are working, like in Dipalia, as I mentioned, we have many projects with children who are specially abled, or as I said, children who are abuse of victims, any kind of victims of abuse. Or so for that matter, we have to make sure that we always keep people's first. Yeah, I think I overshoot it.
No. And that blends in beautifully to what Swapnil has mentioned in his comment. The emotions are riding so high and you're so deeply involved. And I love the fact that he says that's where coaching can really be supportive of the effort. And everything that you've shared in terms of the real on-ground challenges just helps us feel so good about ourselves in terms of, we're on the right track. If we can make a difference, if we can contribute, take the power of coaching, then it's all served well in the interest and purpose for everyone involved. So thank you for sharing. And Ajit, moving to you, I would love to know, from some of the pattern that has emerged for your leadership as well as your team's leadership through coaching, which otherwise would have gone unnoticed. So all the experience and the coachings that's been done so far, how has it helped you identify a pattern for yourself and for your team?
Love that. I think just thinking the first view is sort of a meta view that the fact that we were doing coaching itself, right? That investment into leaders is because in a nonprofit space, so rightly, like Neha also talked about, leaders have to do more with less, right? And you're talking about from a people power perspective, they have to accomplish every single rupee is stretched so much more in the nonprofit space. And they have to do more with their time, they have to do more with their people, they have to do more with less money, all of these things, right? Like I know for some of the companies we work with that we do leadership workshops with, the budgets they have for people development, for managers, यहाँ पे कोई budget ही नहीं है. We have to do everything in-house, right? It's so I think just that, I think the first pattern was how much are we investing into our leadership, right? I think that itself was an eye-opener for us, saying this is such an amazing opportunity, and also, hey, how can we keep creating these spaces for our team? So that was one. I think that pattern definitely it helped us see sort of larger here how we building our leadership, investing in them, because they really are the future of all of our organizations, right? It's and they would, if you invest in them, beneficiaries are hugely benefited. So I think that was number one. The second thing is that I actually asked this question to our team, right, and asked each of them to share their thoughts on how their journey. So a few things. One was just a lot of coaching is about, it's almost like a mirror, right? It's, hey, what's happening on the inside? And I think for a lot of people, there was this is who I am at work and this is who I am. This is who I am eventually was brought in the coaching space, right? When in those coaching conversations, almost like therapy, or I know it's not therapy, but you do tend to sort of talk about fairly deep things with your coach. And I think that was those then patterns started to emerge in terms of, hey, this is who I am, this is how I function, how is it affecting me as a manager, right? For me, it was, I think it was great to sort of talk about my own need to self-sabotage my own work sometimes, my overcompensation and saying yes to too many things. I think so many patterns evolved. But I think when I talk to the team, I think just even for them to understand, how do I eventually coach myself, right? Because these sessions will be 6 sessions, but how do I then ask myself these questions? So patterns of, hey, can I coach myself? Can we help coach each other? And also just how my identity, my behaviors actually affect my managing were some key themes that emerged for our team.
Thank you. Absolutely. And that's really encouraging to know. And I think a lot of coaches who are partnering with all 3 of your organizations would feel really good to hear everything that is being shared, as well as anyone who's listening and is from the not-for-profit sector, who would feel encouraged to have this partnership with the ICF, Delhi NCR chapter of ICF, to really also become a part. And we do this right throughout the year. So encourage anyone who's there listening, anything that has struck a chord with you, allow us to bring to your organization the power of coaching and transformation, as you're hearing. So moving from here, a quick rapid fire round, just first thing that comes to your mind, quick 5 seconds, 6 seconds, don't overthink it. The first question to you, Neha, a leadership habit you're unlearning.
I think the rush, the urgency to respond immediately to things. In fact, it's becoming more strategically to responding to things. Yeah.
Thank you. Sandeep, to you, the toughest leadership muscle to build? And you have a rich experience.
Very answer just simple. It's not about having ideas. It's sticking to your decisions when people don't like them. And trust me, that's very, very important. If you give me a minute, I would probably talk about what I'm meaning that, right? In the very recent last or a week ago, in our mobile medical unit, we had one of the beneficiaries rushing out to my doctor saying that, "Meri bahu gir gayi hai, please usko aake aap dekh lijiye." So when my doctors visited that, this is a young girl of just about 19-year-old who was pregnant and about to deliver. So my doctors called me and said, "Hey, boss, we don't do it. She's about to deliver. If we carry her in our ambulance, she may be on her way. Either the kid may not survive or the mother may not survive. What to do?" I said, "Help and anything. I'm not bothered. Do the delivery right at their place." And this is a hut mat in the rural village. So as a CEO, one of the toughest decisions right now is, should I go with compliance because you not do that, or should I save a life? Right. So in the non-for-profit, this is one of the hardest decisions, is whether you be on the side of my beneficiary or probably you live with the books which define the rules of the game.
Wow.
So that's why I keep saying always, the life in the non-for-profit is much more difficult than in the for-profit business.
Absolutely. And while you were sharing, I could see, Ajit and Neha all nodding and saying, yeah.
Yes, yes, because it's always, Kenneth, it's always the right work over good work that matters when you're working with the non-profits. So, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, Ajit, to you. One thing your team needs more of right now?
Can I say two? One definitely is psychological safety, and I think attached to that, like Sandeep said, right? Like for them to know that they have our 100% backing, right? That as their managers, as their leaders, as we are in their corner. To me, that's my consistent thing is, hey, I will back you 100%, and that is my job. Right? My job is not to sit on top of you and say, did you do this right? Did you get this right? Two things to tell them is, hey, you are enough, you've got this, and I will do everything in my power to support you. Right? I think those are some of the most powerful things every team needs, and definitely should have more of.
Thank you. Thank you. We're doing good with time. There are a few questions that have already started to populate in the comments section. Maybe we'll plug in a few questions and then continue. The first question I have is from Aditi, who's saying, curious to know how smaller NGOs can start leveraging coaching. Any of the panel speaker who feels good to? Yeah,
simple answer. Connect with ICF Delhi chapter. They've helped the IGF. I'm sure they help all of you guys to become better leaders. That's a simple answer. And believe me, it happens. I'm not saying for the sake of it, but yes, I have seen the transformation in my leaders at team. I've spoken about that in my first answer. I think ICF Delhi chapter is the answer. Do it, and I'm sure we all have success. I know.
Thank you.
I'll leave it to Neha and Ajit to comment, but from I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think, Ajit, do you want to go first?
Go for it, Neha.
Okay, so I feel yes, but Sandeep, I'm sure Kenneth didn't look too happy. I'm sure they have a constraint too, probably. But see, what we practiced, before ICF had happened. So how we were in the previous organizations or even here, we were doing a lot of knowledge sharing. So I think when we are doing with the peer NGOs, we do a lot of knowledge sharing. There's a lot of discussions and debates within the organization also. So we sit within the department with teams and interdepartment also with each other, so that everybody, when they're discussing and they're talking their work, they also value the other side. So that really helps. There are a lot of online available tools also that people can look out for. That should also help. And I think what Sandeep, I'll pick from there that the best way is, you connect. So even if, ICF, Kenneth, if there isn't, the scope is very thin, but ICF can still, and maybe agency and coaching opportunities that they would be knowing of with other peer organization who does the same thing, and the connect would always help in that manner.
Love
Yeah.
it. I think, Kenneth, you're going to have a good line of NGOs.
Purpose met.
Yeah.
But Ajit, maybe I'll throw in a different question to you that's come from Gitanjali Saxena, who's saying, where does funding for coaching comes from in the not-for-profit sector?
Gitanjali, if you find out, please tell me. Yeah. I think two things. One is from any unrestricted funding. So if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, you're using something like Impact Guru to do a crowdfunding campaign, you can use that funding sometimes for this. That's number one. Second is from admin costs. I think that also is. The other one is to go to philanthropic organizations, because CSR will very rarely give you money for coaching, but sometimes philanthropic organizations can give, but you need to be able to show that, hey, this coaching will then unlock X, Y, Z, ABC. They're not that philanthropic also. Aram se paise le lo. So yeah, so I think showing that. I think the other ways to reduce costs is more often than not, people that I've spoken to are senior in their journey, and I've said, hey, would you be open to coaching one of our team members? 9 out of 10 people have said yes, either free or pro bono or at a very reduced rate, right? I think we've had that experience, and it's been very, very beneficial to the team. So I think that is number one. The other place to look at is peer coaching, like Neha shared, either intra-organization or even inside the organization. Create coaching pods in some sense. And what you would need there is one senior coach, like someone with Kenneth, to come and spend time with your team to give them the basics of coaching, right? They're never going to be able to do as good a job in peer coaching as a Kenneth or a certified coach will do. But at least if those basics of coaching are put in place, you can have mini coaching pods. We've tried that within you and I also. And I think the last one to be is maybe use your advisory board. Right, user advisory board. They are people with a lot of experience, or build an advisory board. Saying, hey, would you like to be a mentor for top management, etc. So those are ways in which we've tried. Some have worked, some haven't. But I feel like every NGO has their own flavor. You need to figure it out for yourself.
Perfect. Thank you for bringing in that rich awareness. I think very, very useful for the audience. We have another interesting question that's from Garima, who's asking, what would you tell leaders who are unsure about investing time in coaching? And that's a very interesting one, because like we said at the starting point, it was somewhere in all of our minds as to, is this going to be a value of my time, or where would I even make time for it? So whoever feels excited, enthusiastic to take this question.
Yeah, I'll take that. So Garima, I think, anyone who's not very sure, not just for leaders, but even for teams, when it comes to coaching, see, coaching always gives you that space where you start trusting. And once that happens, you also start delegating, because as we see, we are always over functioning as leaders, especially, and as team members equally. Everybody is over functioning when it comes to grassroots work with community, because we are dealing with so many human emotions, and we have to maintain that humane part of us always. So I think coaching would help us in managing that, strategically planning that, and when that happens, it's a lot of trust that you have in your team, and you try delegating work, and it's kind of shared ownership. That everybody starts feeling in the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone would like to add, Sandeep, Ajit?
Sandeep, go for it. I think two things. Maybe one is a lead by example. I think when the leaders are being coached, that is one. The second thing is to understand why they are unsure, right? They're unsure maybe because they've had a previous bad experience, or they just don't know what coaching is. So I think to identify that, and especially if you're in a small organization, have real, honest, authentic conversations about it. I think to us, the winning thing was just saying, hey, this is an investment in you. This isn't an investment in the manager or the senior leader, or this is an investment in you. And wherever you go, you take this, right? This isn't about you achieving your OKRs or KPIs. And I think that really frames it well and hopefully most people are happy with that, especially if it's coming at free of charge. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's another question from Alok, who's yeah, Sandeep, you want to add to that?
No, I was just talking about one of the research which I recently read. It says that people don't learn from the positive feedback, right? The most of the improvement which has happened in especially the young leaders which you've seen recently is all about negative feedback which is being given to them. Because when you give the negative feedback from your experience and the acts are on the ground, people learn much faster. Now, who gives the negative feedback to a person? Not your manager. So it has to be somebody who you trust on, right? Because when you receive a negative feedback and you start improvising on it, it has to be a buddy. Now, who can be a buddy can be a coach, right? Because you start trusting the person on the other side. And that's very, very important. I keep saying everybody, you need to have a mentor, your buddy and coach in your life very early, right? Your manager in the same organization can never be your buddy because people do shy away telling a straightforward feedback to that person because they somewhere back of our mind we know that यार कल छोड़ गया तो उसका replacement कहाँ मिलेगा. Okay, so so important thing is first have the appetite to receive that feedback, the negative feedback, improvise on it. So that's where coaches do make a lot of difference.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think coaching does give that space to every individual to really open themselves up. And when it's the inner experience that you put outward is where the recognition, the realization happens at a much deeper level. And that's what leads to transformation. And it's a safe space. The conversations that you have with your coach is confidential. It remains with the two of you. So there is always this sense of, like, we heard the term before, psychological safety. I think Ajit spoke about that. That is the heart and the connect of coaching. Maybe one more question, which was from Alok, which says that what are some of the ways in which it makes sense to measure the impact or benefits of coaching? And I think this is a very good question, Alok. Thank you for putting that across. What are your thoughts? Maybe Ajit, if we could start with you.
Yeah, I think with coaching, to me personally, I don't know how much I want to get into the measuring because there are so many intangibles, right? When you work on your inner self, when you work on who you bring to work, it affects so many things. It is so difficult to measure, right? There are some KPIs, yes, that you can bring some clarity to, but there's 15 other things also affecting that KPI, right? So I found that, hey, have a feedback process. And I think a lot of times that investment that you are putting in will bear fruit in so many different ways. If you want a one metric or one thing, I find it challenging. I think the one metric you will see it hugely show up in is when you ask people whether they feel invested in, right? And that will definitely give you a clear metric. Will it show up in work? 100%, right? And will it show up in so many different ways of work? That's why for me, like even when I post these 6 months, what are the things that have changed? It's a laundry list of things that have changed. And then to convert that to a metric to me sometimes feels very reductive rather than, hey, we know it's done its work. So yeah, not a helpful answer, but I'll let Sandeep and Neha maybe answer.
Yeah.
No, Ajit, I agree to that. I think, investing in coaching is that you're not putting too much of time, but it's also, if you don't put that time, you'll only be fixing problems here and there. So it's an investment to strategically plan things. And when it comes to impact, I think for a non-profit, I'm sure everybody is much aware, and people from the NGO sector, they are well aware that non-profit impact does not come like that. You've given funding for education, the child doesn't go PhD in a year with your funding. It doesn't go that way. So, it's just like how you sow a seed and you keep watering it. So when you measure impact, in any sector, in any area, it is gradual. It doesn't happen immediately. But I agree to the question that Sir had asked, that it is also important to see how it's actually benefiting, because it's kind of validates the whatever inputs are going in. So that can always be done by the kind of decision making that is happening, not just the deliverables but also the process. Sometimes it's very interesting in the developmental sector that you plan a certain outcome, and while in the process you come out with an unexpected, unplanned outcome. So how to even use that as an opportunity to grow, to deal with it and to come up with solutions and to make the best optimal use of those opportunities. I think those are ways to measure some of the things. How happy is your, the happy question among your team, the happiness index amongst them, how passionate they are about working. Yeah.
That's showed up, Neha, in the comment that you see. Happy people feel great, and to feel great, they want to be happy. Wonderfully said. And I will connect with you separately, Professor Sona, for the other question that you have. So with the interest of time, I'm just going to quickly say thank you and gratitude to each one of you and bring Indu back to close it for us.
Thank you, Kenneth, Ajit, Neha, and Sandeep. The conversation today was truly enriching. And what stayed with me is the honesty with which you leaders have showed that curiosity and your little apprehension, which evolved into a clarity and confidence through coaching, especially in your sector where emotional labor is constant and deeply personal. Thank you very much for giving that, confirmation or kind of a sense, saying that coaching has created those psychological safety to you as a leaders and the leaders who are also undergoing coaching with us, where there is a need for to steady them, steady yourself, balancing the rule book with the human side, and also keeping the organization sailing through those good and difficult days. With that, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to you, Neha, Sandeep, and Ajit, for joining us today and generously sharing your lived experiences from this coaching journey. Your reflections have brought in depth, honesty, and credibility to what leadership growth truly looks like in the not-for-profit sector. My next gratitude is to Ms. Debashi Chakrabarti, the President of Delhi NCR ICF chapter, and the entire Delhi NCR board for this opportunity and for steadfastly championing leadership growth and capacity building, an ethos that sits at the very heart of the chapter's community service portfolio. A special thanks to the members of our Circle of Trust, a committed group of coaches who form the backbone of our initiative, partnering deeply with coachees like you and enabling meaningful, sustainable change. Thank you to all our audiences who have joined us today to listen, to reflect, and engage with how coaching is shaping the leaders and their organizations through this Project Ignite initiative of ICF Foundation. Finally, thank you, Kenneth, for thoughtfully moderating the session and holding the space for such an authentic and grounded dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone once again.
Thank you, Indu. Thank you, Kenneth. Thanks, Neha.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much.
Bye.